Let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva namotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jaya mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and to Narayan, which is the supermost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author Srila Vyasadeva. Hare Krishna. So today is March 9, 2022. And we are in Atlanta at the Bhakti Yoga Ashram of Bhaktin Kelly. And what is an ashram? That's a question I got recently. So I'm going to give some space for that. What is an ashram? So the ashram is a place or a position that supports self-realization and God realization. So a place could be a house where that supports self-realization and God realization. A place could be also a place where we associate, like an ashram, it's other people who live with us and who also have for goal self-realization and God realization. An ashram also, it's in a position as in the social order. An ashram is a position in that order. For example, there is a brahmachari ashram that's conducive for self-realization for a certain age and for a certain mind frame. So a brahmachari is a person who takes the position of a servant of the guru and a student and choose to do a lot of austerity. One of the main austerity of the brahmachari or the brahmacharini is following very strictly the Four Legal Principle and accepting a vow of a renunciation of a relationship with the opposite gender. So that's an ashram that's conducive. In a Vedic time, that ashram could start as early as 5-year-old, like really being clear, like I'm going to be celibate. And usually will end around 25, like that. But so that's an ashram. And then another ashram that in Kali Yoga probably is the most challenging, but also the most conducive is a Grihastha ashram. So after being celibate, usually a student will enter marriage life. And that's an ashram. Why? Because if the couple's goal is to focus on self-realization and God realization, then their ashram, their association together, putting God in the center, putting the spiritual master's pleasure in the center, is going to become very, very conducive for self-realization and God realization. And then in that order, that there is after that, at the end of the Grihastha ashram, when the children are gone, around 50-year-old, then naturally there is a need to go back to experiencing more renunciation, detachment from the world, to not be attached to all those things that are not so important, externally, internally, all the relationship, because in a sense, it's a time to prepare for living this life, So we want to be clear of attachment by the time we leave this body. Because if we have any attachment by the time we leave the body, then those attachments may create that we come back again and take birth again and suffer being a woman, a mother again, suffer to childhood. Childhood is so much pain. Suffer, like needing to make money, needing to feed myself, needing, all the context, the material context, the human context of, all the misery. So starting a 50-year-old upward, the goal is to really detach, little by little, detached from everything, really, not being involved in the world, but from a complete aloof place, detached place. So that's a Vanaprastha ashram, and there sometimes the man and the woman decide to separate because it's more conducive for them, or maybe they stay together. And then some men will take sannyas, and that's another ashram, where the men not only detach, but renounce everything and come to a place like not having anything, not owning anything, not owning a house, not owning a bank account, not owning anything, and spending life in preaching Krishna consciousness, in preaching to others. So we started with what is an ashram. So an ashram is a place, a position, a situation, place, position, a situation that is fully 100% conducive for self-realization and God realization. So here we are in the ashram of Bhaktin Kelly. And why it's an ashram? Because it is conducive for self-realization and God realization. That's what it is. Hare Krishna. So today our class is on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Untitled Status Quo. Do you think you can put the light?
Oh, yes, of course.
Is it possible? Because I will see better with the light.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much better.
Anything else?
I have a table here, a
Yes,
book table. It's called a book table.
Yes.
Okay. So, so the third canto is Untitled Status Quo, and we are on text 37, and we can I'm good with that,
Just in case.
Just in case, okay. And we are on text 37, and we can repeat a Sanskrit word at a time. Kim, Va, Krita, Agesu, Agam, Ati Amarsi, Bhima, Ahivat, Dirgatamam, Vyamunchat, Yasya, Angripatam, Ranabu, Na, Sehe, Margam, Gadaya, Charata, Vichitram. Kim Vagrita Geshvagam Atyamarshi. Bimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat. Yasyang Gripatam Ranabu Nasehe. Margam Gadaya Charato Vichitram. Kiva Krita Geshvagam Atyamarshi. Bimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Vyamunchat.
Yasyang Gripatam Rana Burnasehe.
Yasyang Gripatam Rana Burnasehe.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram.
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamuchat.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Yashyang Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Yasyang Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Margam Gadayash Charato Vichitram.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram. Kimvakrat Kashivagam Ati Marsi.
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Yasyang Gripatam Ranaburnesehe.
Yashyang Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram.
Margam Gadayash Charato Vichitram.
Kim Vakatageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Yasyang Gripatam Ranaburnasehe.
Yasyang Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram.
Margam Gadayash Charato Vichitram. Someone online would like to chat?
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Vimo Hivadir Gatamam Viman Yamunchat.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Yasyang Gripatam Ranaburnasehe.
Yashyang Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram.
Margam Gayatas Charato Vichitram.
Imva Kritageshva Agnam Atyamarshi.
Kim va Kritageshvagam Atyamarshi.
Vimo Hivadir Gatamam Vimunichat.
Vimo Ivadir Gatamam Vyamunchat.
Yasyan Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Yashyang Gripatam Ranabunasehe.
Margam Gadayas Charato Vichitram.
Margam Gadayash Charato Vichitram. Hare Krishna, thank you. Going word for word with the translation. Kim,
Kim,
whether,
whether,
va,
va,
either,
either,
krita,
Krita,
performed,
performed,
agesu,
Ageshu,
unto the sinners,
unto the sinners,
agam,
Agam,
angry, ati amarsi,
Ati Amarshi,
unconquerable,
unconquerable,
bhima,
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 ahivat,
Ahivat,
like a cobra,
like a cobra,
dirgatamam,
Dirgatama,
long cherished,
long cherished,
vyamunchat,
Vyamunchat,
as released,
has released,
Yasya,
Yasya.
whose
Whose.
Angripatam,
Angripatam.
putting on the steps.
Putting on the steps.
Ranabu,
Ranabu.
the field of battle.
The field of battle.
Na,
Na.
could not.
Could not.
Se,
Sehe.
tolerate.
Tolerate.
Margam,
Margam.
the pass.
The path.
Gadaya,
Gadaya.
by the clubs.
By the clubs.
Charata,
Charata.
playing.
Playing.
Vichitram,
Vichitram.
wonderful.
Wonderful.
Translation. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle could not tolerate even the wonderful playing of his club when he stepped on the path. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidura knew the strength of Bhima. Whenever Bhima was on the battlefield, his steps on the path and the wonderful playing of his club were unbearable for the enemy. Powerful Bhima did not take steps against the son of Dhritarashtra for a long time. Vidura's inquiry was whether he had yet released his anger, which was like that of a suffering cobra. When a cobra releases its venoms after a long cherished anger, its victim cannot survive. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyanajala Shalakaya Chakshun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Datati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutedevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Amine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvesesha Shunyavadi Paskacha Dejatarine Hare Krishna. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle could not tolerate even the wonderful playing of his club when he stepped on the path. So, Hare Krishna, we are continuing to hear the inquiry of Vidura to Uddhava. And you want to know? Okay, who is here? I want to say who is here because Bhaktin Kelly is curious because she's like, okay, so the program is in my house. I need to know who is here because it's a ashram here. So who is coming to associate in this ashram to support self-realization and God realization? So we have Gajendra Prabhu, Lakshmi Priya Prabhu. We have Rukmini Prabhu, Bhakta Devan, Bhakta Niko. And here in person, we have Ladini Shakti Prabhu and Bhaktin Kelly. Hi Krishna, all of you. So yeah, Vidura is inquiring, and what's interesting about his inquiry is that we have a son that he knows. He's inquiring, but he's already knowing. Yes, he already know what's happened. He have been traveling for 30 years. He met many sages. He only stopped in place of pilgrimages. In those places of pilgrimage, there is sages, and many sages are Trikalagya. They know what's happening. They know what's happening on earth. They knew about the battlefield, Kurukshetra. They knew that Krishna departed. They knew everything. So he probably heard already. So we can ask ourselves, why is he inquiring? Why is he inquiring if he already know? And that's the secret of devotional service. That's the secret of what's spiritual and what's material. What's material become agneed. As soon as we know, we know. We don't ask anymore what's 2 + 2 is. It's 4. We don't ask anymore, yes? And in the material consciousness also, there is a sense of I know or I don't know. I know or I don't know. If I know, I know. And if I don't know, I need to know. That's how material consciousness go, right? I know or I don't know. And one of our course, we start like that. We speak about I know or I don't know. And that's a world of duality. That's a world of duality. I know, I don't know, black, white, cold, heat, right, wrong. That's what it is. And it's very close indeed. And the spiritual platform is Atato Brahma Vigyasa. Now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. It doesn't say now is the time to know or have all the answer. It says now is the time to inquire. And also Jivasya Tattva Vigyasya, to inquire about the absolute truth. And there is no other job to do, inquire about the absolute truth. So we have the 2 paradigms. The material paradigm is, if I already know what's happening on the battlefield, Kurukshetra, I already heard from sages. If I meet someone, I would ask them about the weather, but certainly not about something I already know about. However, in spiritual life, what's important is inquiring. Inquiring why? Because the process of spiritual life is not about knowing or not knowing. It's not about acquiring knowledge. It's about hearing. It's about hearing. And Vidura is so eager to hear. And he's so eager to hear specifically from Uddhava, because he knows Uddhava has a special message for him. Uddhava is cousin of Lord Krishna. Uddhava also, he was right there when Krishna left the planet. He was right there. There was only 2 people right there. There was Uddhava and Maitreya Rishi when the Lord, was leaving the planet. So like Vidura, when he met Uddhava, he was so eager to inquire about very confidential matter and about the Lord. Why? Because hearing is a perfection of life. And if we can mold our life also for us to hear about something we may know, we may not know, we may understand, we may not even understand. It doesn't matter. Because the process, Shrim Vatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shana Pana Kirtana, Hidyantasto Reabadani, Vidunoti Suitsatam. That's what it is. The process, Krishna is like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the Personality of Godhead with the Paramatma inside the heart of everyone. Is the Paramatma and is a benefactor of the truthful devotee. So truthfulness is like a religion, and is a benefactor, and he cleans the heart. He cleans our heart from all, our material desire, all the unwanted things in the heart, all the dirt there. To one who is eager to hear his message, eager to hear his message, like Vidura. Show us like he's eager to hear the message. He wants to hear about Mother Devaki. He wants to hear about Krishna. He wants to hear about Krishna's children. He wants to hear about his grandchildren. Like he asked about Aniruddha. He wants to hear even about the devotee, because we need to develop that urge to hear about Krishna, about Krishna's pure devotees, and about their relationship. So Krishna, he cleaned the heart of the truthful devotee who wants to hear about himself, those messages which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So that's a process. The process is of hearing. And what is knowledge? What is knowledge? I have the Bhagavad Gita here because that's a verse I don't know by heart. But the Bhagavad Gita tells us what is knowledge. And we are going to have a good surprise about what is knowledge. So let me find out. Let us hear from Sri Krishna what is knowledge. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit because it's 4 verses. So you can read it on your, it's 5 verses in fact. It's text 8 to 12 of chapter 13. So let's hear what knowledge is. Let's go slow. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the object of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of evil, of birth and death, old age and disease. That's what's evil here. It's so evil. Birth, death, old age and disease. Non-attachment to children, wife, home and the rest. And even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me, Krishna speaking, so he said to me. Resorting to solitary places, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search of the absolute truth. All this, I thus declare, to be knowledge. So that's what Krishna declared is knowledge. And what is contrary to this is ignorance. So that's clear. You know, knowledge, sometimes in our conditioning, we imagine knowledge is data. But, you know, a computer has that knowledge. Do we want to have the same knowledge in a computer? There must be something else to knowledge than accumulation of data.
Sounds like wisdom.
Sounds like wisdom, exactly. Yeah, like wisdom, exactly. That's wisdom. All those qualities are wisdom, like really being a wise woman, being a wise man, and cultivating those qualities. This is knowledge. And everything that's opposed to those, and there is so much opposition to even the first one, humility. Someone with humble in the world is not respected, like, you know, in a materialistic, like cutthroat, shark kind world. Humility is not seen as something good. Like the more puffed up you are, the more arrogant you are, the more loud you are about what you know and spread it. In France, we have an expression, the less knowledge you have, the most you want to spread it. It's like butter, you know? When you have a little bit of butter, you need to spread it to your bread to recover every part of your bread. So the less knowledge you have, the more you want to spread it. That's a French expression. So yes, so like those qualities, humility, pridelessness, non-violence. Non-violence is so opposed. Like violence, you know, Putin, he wants to be famous. His name is going to go for eternity in history of humankind now, you know, because he's doing something that's going to leave a legacy forever. If he had just been like an ordinary, like, who remember Mitterrand, for example, who remember, you know, like so many presidents. They have not done anything. Nobody remembers them. Who remember Hitler? Everybody remember Hitler, Stalin, Lenin. They are big names, big name, big demons name. Huh?
Gandhi too.
Gandhi also, he did something special, non-violence. So, either you do something good, but it's more difficult, or you do something very evil, which is easier, and then you get posterity. You go into history. So all those qualities are said to be knowledge. So from that, we understand that knowledge is not about accumulating data. And like when we comes to transcendental knowledge, and there is another verse that I can read, transcendental knowledge. What is transcendental knowledge? Transcendental knowledge is revealed. It's not something we can acquire from books. It's not. Transcendental knowledge is revealed through serving the spiritual master. My only desire, no, I was my desire is that you fill my heart with transcendental knowledge. My desire is that you fill my heart with transcendental knowledge. It's not like my desire is that you let me read your book. Of course, we want to read Srila Prabhupada's books. We are receiving his knowledge by surrendering to that service of reading these books, but not because we want to control the knowledge. There is a lot of distinction about knowledge and what is hearing, listening. And so my desire is that you fill my heart with transcendental knowledge. And that knowledge, transcendental knowledge, is revealed to us to service to the spiritual master, chanting Hare Krishna, following his instruction. Okay, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Reading his book, to hear from him, to hear, constantly hearing. And if we absorb ourselves, if we constantly hear, then the sponge of our mind, like the mirror of the mind get clean. It get clean by hearing. So if we constantly hear from the spiritual master and stop hearing mundane things, because when we hear mundane things, that's what come back to our mind, isn't it? The more we hear mundane information, speak about mundane information, absorb ourselves, that's what come back. That's what come back to me. If I absorb myself, like I've been looking at the war, I want to understand that war. Somehow it interests me. And I can see, like, my mind is contaminated by that. That's, and if I was, studying like about Krishna or hearing about Krishna with the same intensity of desire, my mind will be full of Krishna all the time, Krishna, Krishna. So by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, hearing his classes, listening to kirtan, fill our ears, fill our heart, fill our mind with transcendental sound vibration, then that transcendental sound vibration is clearing the dirt from the mirror of the mind. And then the mind more and more is like a sponge absorbing those transcendental vibrations. And so in the 9th chapter, there is also a verse, and there's even a book that we read with a women's group. It's called Raja Vidya, the King of Knowledge. So let's hear what's the King of Knowledge. Raja Vidya Raja Gulyam Pavitamidam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dhamyam Sushukam Kartum Avyayam. So this knowledge is the King of Education. So the King of Education. What? Not university, the King of University? Not getting a PhD? Not having degrees or learning all those books? No, it's this knowledge. What knowledge? The most secret of all secret. It's an open secret. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. So direct perception of the self by realization. This is wisdom. It's called Vigyan. Like we can have Gyan. I can learn by heart all Prabhupada's books. But if I don't have the attitude of service while reading them, if I don't have the attitude that it's not about accumulating knowledge, but I want to hear from the spiritual master. I'm so eager to hear from Krishna. I'm so eager to hear from Vidura. I'm so eager to hear from Uddhava. Without that attitude, then it doesn't become realized. And that the king of knowledge is realization, to come to a place that we have realization. And we all have realization. We all have realization because Krishna reveals himself to us all the time, according to our surrender. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is a perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. A knowledge that joyfully performed, what is that? Knowledge is not joyfully performed. Knowledge is acquired by, like trying to push it into my brain, isn't it? But there he said, performed. So how it connects with what we just read in the 13th chapter, all those quality. Knowledge is performed. It's a wisdom that's performed by developing all those quality, by hearing when our heart become clean, it become clean from pride, from all the opposite. We can take one after the other. It cleans from the pride. It cleans from our violence. It cleans from our intolerance. It cleans from our complexity. Hearing cleans from the rebellions against authority and not wanting to hear from someone who have knowledge and wanted to think like, I have all the knowledge, I know better. It cleans the heart from that. And we can continue, like it cleans the heart from our dirtiness, just being dirty in our habits and dirty in our thinking. It cleans our heart from our unsteadiness, our lack of control. And we can go on with all those qualities. We can look at the opposite, and that's nations. That's nations. And through hearing, we are cleaning our heart from all that. And then we have an opportunity to perform knowledge, perform cleanliness, perform accepting a spiritual master, perform simplicity. Simplicity. What's the name of your company?
Simplify.
Simplify. So perform simplicity. Yeah, exact. So that's about. So we see Vidura. He gets it. Vidura he knows it all, and he could say, "I know it all. I will tell you what's happening with the Pandava as soon as he meets Uddhava. I could do that. Here's what I heard, and here is like no, he's not. Say here. I'm putting all those questions, and in this question there is so much, knowledge already, and still is there. And we too, we want to hear, because eternal time means that everything is eternal, meaning every moment is eternal. Every moment is eternal. It's kind of mind-boggling. Every moment is eternal. Like Mother Yashoda running after Krishna is eternal. She eternally runs. Like that. I'm binding Krishna, or like Krishna carrying the shoes of his father on his head, or Krishna killing the demon. It's eternal. Every moment is eternal in the spiritual world. And knowledge is eternal too. So there is never any moment where we know. So we can inquire eternally. Is that fun? Inquire eternally. Never come to a place that there is no inquiry. Because atato brahma vigyasa and jivasya tadva vigyasa. It's what we are supposed to do. That's so, it's spiritually, it's about inquiring and about hearing. It's not about I know or I don't know. Inquiring, hearing, inquiring, hearing. That's a balance. And everything else is in duality, in material consciousness. So Vidura is inquiring, and specifically is inquiring about Bhimasen. You have inquired about Yudhishthir in the last verse, and next verse I think he's going to inquire about Arjuna. So he's inquiring about his nephews. And notice he first inquired about the family of Uddhava. He first inquired about the Yadu dynasty, because that's what people do when they meet, like, how is your mother? How is your family? And now he's inquiring about his own family, because he hasn't had any news for 30 years, or he had a lot of news for 30 years. both. And so Bhimasena is one of the Pandava, and of all of them is known as a ferocious eater. He's a ferocious eater, and is like strong. When Draupadi was disrobed, Yudhishthir went down here like that, and he didn't do anything. He was just sheepish. And Arjuna, he was there. But Bhimasena, he wanted to jump. He wanted to jump and kill everyone. And then Arjuna and Nakula Sahadev, they had to restrain Bhimasena. No, don't do that. But he was so full of anger. And in fact, there is something that we don't hear so much about, is that in their childhood, there is a 5 Pandava and all the Kurus, and the son of Dhritarashtra headed by Duryodhana. And Bhimasena, he had kind of a lot of pleasure of teasing and bullying a little bit Duryodhana. So, Duryodhana is kind of, he has something, like the two of them have angst against each other. Somehow Bhimasena, he really liked a little bit bullying. Anyway, but Bhimasena, he was very aware of all what the Kuru dynasty did against them. And he was carrying a lot of anger. And here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada said he was like a cobra, because he was controlling his anger somewhat. He was controlling his anger, and he was so ferocious. He could fight like nobody else could fight with his favorite weapon was club, and with his club he could smash everything. And Bhimasena here is compared to a cobra, so he kept his anger. However, Vidura is inquiring because he knows about the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he knows that there he could just fully manifest his anger and then fight with Duryodhana and then annihilate and kill Duryodhana. So I was thinking that we could speak a little bit about anger. Yeah, because it makes sense, in this verse to speak about anger. And in the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, it reads, Pacho vegam manaso koda vegam, jiva vegam upara pasta vegam, etam vegam yo vishaheta dira, sarvam aprimam pritivim sashishyat. So that's the first verse by Srila Rupa Goswami of the Nectar of Instruction. And the Nectar of Instruction is a fast track instruction word, shiksha, like instruction. And that takes us where we are at with our anger and our senses, and take us in 11 verses to the highest level of transcendental knowledge and ecstasy and realization. It's really realization, the highest level, Radhakund, like the highest level of, and that's in 11 verses. That little book takes us from where we are at there, and it's intense. It's an intense book. There is 18 chapters to the Bhagavad Gita. There is 12 cantos to Bhagavatam, and this takes us through the whole process in 11 verses, and it's a very tiny book. So, but here is where we start. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak. And I know, I can speak a lot, and I really don't like it. That's a part of me that I don't like. It's my mom. My mom speaks. Like when I call my mom, I say 3 words, or maybe sometimes I say a sentence, maybe 2, and she speaks for 45 minutes. It's amazing. And often I don't speak about me, but let's say if I would speak about myself for 1 sentence, then she will give me advice for 45 minutes, not knowing the situation, not knowing what it is about, not knowing, the people involved in the situation, not knowing anything. She's a superpower. She can give me advice for 45 minutes. It's amazing. So, like that's where I come from. And so it's having a lot of work on myself. First, to not give advice. That's a roadblock to effective communication, we say in Sattva. So, and then to also learn to listen more, to use, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means we are supposed to use those twice as much as we use that one. And so Vachavegan, so the urge to speak. So a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak. So it's an urge. It's not that we need to criticize ourselves. It's a natural urge of the body, of the human conditioning to blah, 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 constantly wanting to speak. It's an urge. So we want to be aware, okay? Me as a spirit soul having a human experience, part of that body is that I'm going to have urges to speak. And part of wanting to acquire knowledge in the form of practicing, performing knowledge, not accumulating data, is to learn to be simple with my words. So a person tolerates the urge to speak, the mind's demand to be heard. That's the first demand of the mind. Listen to me. I will guide you. I will be your guru. I will tell you what to do, what not to do, what to think, what not to think. I'm going to even tell you what others think. That's really amazing. The mind is so demanding that we know what other people think. That's quite amazing if you think about how demanding the mind is. Demand not only that I'm the controller and I'm telling you what to do, but I'm also the controller of other people, like I know. And in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's clearly expressed how it's not possible, that we are the knower of the field, and only Krishna is the knower of all the field. And us, as a tiny, minute spirit soul, we are only the knower of one field. And how peaceful is that? How peaceful it is if we could take the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita and apply it to our life. That I only know one field and I only need to focus on one field while I'm serving. And I don't, it's not my business to concern myself with other people's thoughts, other people's feelings. So many people, they are controlled by other people's feeling, emotion, thoughts, what they are going to think about me, are they going to feel? Well, it's not my business, according to Bhagavad Gita, because I don't know. I cannot predict that this person, maybe I do something, and then my mind is telling me, demanding, like, no, don't do that. They are not going to be pleased. But then I say, I don't know. I don't know if they are going to be pleased or not, because that's the truth. According to the 13th chapter, I only know my field of activity and I don't know the other people's field of activity. So I have no idea how they are going to respond. So from that knowledge, from the 13th chapter, I'm thinking, well, I don't know, but acting this way is in my integrity, according to my value and principle, not according to my mind, of course, like it's not a good master, but according to my value and principle, this is how I'm led to act. And then I don't know, and if I come from that platform, often I'm surprised that my mind was really wrong. My mind was really wrong. Was telling me this person is going to be upset with you, this person is going to criticize, judge you, whatever, not like you. And then if I really act according to my value, principle, and integrity, then often I found my mind is wrong. So the demand of the mind, I don't need to go into more details. I think we all get it. Action of anger. So here we are looking. So who can tolerate the urge to speak and the actions of anger. So, like, it's interesting, we are supposed to tolerate the action of anger, boiling, like the blood boiling inside our vein. What else? What's the action of anger?
Black in front of the eyes.
Black in front of the eyes or red in front of the eyes. What else is the action
Fire
of anger?
in the heart.
Fire in the heart. I want to bite. Like, that's my thing. I want to bite. What else? What else? Action of anger. Wanted to scream. That's action of anger. Wanted to scream. And curse. Action of anger and curse. So many action of anger. So yes. So tolerate the action of anger, and that's so connected with experiencing my experience. Tolerate without being disturbed. Like tolerating. I'm experiencing anger. I am experiencing blood, flowing fast. I'm experiencing my eyes wanted red. I'm experiencing wanted to bite. I'm experiencing, and experiencing those actions of anger within my body. And the urge of the tongue. So this time is not speaking anymore. It must be something else and speaking. What's the urge of the tongue? Taste, eating chocolate, eating sweets. For many people, the urge of the tongue means like, I'm going to have my big steak. I'm going to have my big steak because I'm not aware that, in fact, this steak is like the result of gross violence to animals. People are not even aware. They don't even want to think, like pretending not to know that it is animals. It's just meat. It's cattle, it's meat. It's not cow and animals. And so the urge, the urge tongue, that's really lead us to hell. It's a path to hell. Sarira Vidyajal. It's like ignorance. It's a path to hell to follow the urge of the tongue. And also the urge of the belly. So the tongue and the belly, maybe the tongue sometimes wants to eat something, or sometimes the belly wants something. It may be different. I'm not always clear about the distinction between the two. And my Kindle just. And genital. And genitals. And that's a really interesting one, because in my coaching, I see a lot of people who, because they feel guilt and shame about the urge of their genitals, they indulge their genitals, because the more guilt and shame we feel about something, the more we tend to indulge it. And at the core, what I found, and even more so in spiritual association, but also outside of the spiritual association, is that people tend to make the urge wrong. And by making the urge wrong, we make sex wrong. And by making sex wrong, then every time we have an urge, we feel so bad about ourselves. And when we feel bad about ourselves, we act bad. If I feel good, I act good. It's very simple. If I feel good about myself, I act good for my well-being to my higher self. If I feel bad about myself, I act bad, and I indulge my lower self. Simple. So this verse is so often misunderstood. And then if that misunderstanding lead to like thinking that the urge of the genitals are wrong. But this verse very clearly says sex part of the human context, part of the field of activity as a spiritual having a human experience, that there will be the urge of the tongue, and there will be the demand of the mind, and there will be the action of the anger. All that is part of the experience, and it's not about making that part of the experience wrong. It's about experiencing it and choosing what we do with it, and that's control. So it says, a sober person who can tolerate, it doesn't say repress. It doesn't say make them wrong. It doesn't say criticizing. It says a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demand, the action of anger, the urge of the tongue, belly, and genital is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So let's really read that's what it says here. It said tolerate without being disturbed. That means if it needs to be tolerated, it's like it's normal that it's there. You know, it's like, okay, a sober person needs to tolerate the rain in Atlanta today. I'm not going to make the rain wrong or be guilty. I'm just, okay, there is rain exists, and that's the weather today, and I'm going to tolerate it. I'm going to tolerate those urgent demands. And then like that, I can make disciple. And one can ask, oh, why will want to make disciple? It's just the verse is telling us, you know, by tolerating those urges, then we become more and more qualified to support people back to Godhead. And because Lord Chaitanya, with an incarnation of God that came 500 years ago, he gave us one very clear instruction. He said, be a guru. Be a guru in your land. That's everyone, you, Kelly, be a guru. You, Ladini, be a guru. You, Nico, be a guru. Everyone, be a guru. Be a guru. Oh, a guru, I mean, I have students. There is people that I'm taking responsibility that for their spiritual life, disciple like that, not necessarily the guru with a big G. And so if I want to do that, then purity is the force, Srila Prabhupada said. Purity is the force. And if I don't control my senses, like there is a story about, I think it's one, a Jiva Goswami, but I'm not sure. I think it's one of the Goswami. And there is a father who took his son to the Goswami. And he said, my son eats too much sweet. And can you tell him to stop? And the Goswami said, well, come back in a week. And so he came back, and he came back with the son, and he said, okay, you know, eating sweet is not conducive, is agitating the mind, and eating sweet also is damaging for the body. So, you know, encourage you to stop sweets. And then the father said, why did you ask for a week? You could have said that 1 week ago. He said, well, because I had to stop first. So purity is a force. Purity is a force. As we keep ourselves clean, as we tolerate those urges to speak nonsense, to you know, to follow the mind wherever the mind is taking me, I go. You know, like to tolerate like the action of anger, the mind, the genitals, the belly, the tongue. Then we acquire that purity. That purity that, yes, then we are going to influence people for their well-being. We are going to influence people to be victorious, like Ladin Shakti was speaking about. Yesterday we did Kirtan for Ukraine and Russia. And at the end, Ladin Shakti shared like the real war is a war for, you know, against the material energy. And he said, by chanting Hare Krishna, we are always victorious. So that's a victory. If we want that victory for others, if we want that victory for others, if we want to act in a highest welfare activity, really, if we really want to do good to others, then our responsibility is to develop purity. Purity, knowledge according to the activity of knowledge described in the Bhagavad Gita, and follow in Srila Rupa Goswami's instruction about tolerating all those urges. I'm going to stop here and I'm open for discussion. I'm going to read the verse again. Kimva kata geshav gam atyamarshi bimo ivadir gatamam vyamunchat yashyang ripatam ranabu nasehe Margam Gadayascharato Vichitram. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long-cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle could not tolerate even the wonderful playing of his club when he stepped on the path. Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening. I hope that whatever I spoke was in the line of Srila Prabhupada's desire. And any comment, question, criticism, sharing, realization, wisdom?
I listening to the part about knowledge and inquiring even when you already know, one already knows. I was thinking, yeah, it makes, I'm used to, okay, I've got that information and moving on. Yeah, like I got that and I can offer that back anytime someone might need it. Do that in my work well. And so I was thinking, all right, how do I find the joy in hearing knowledge over and over and over and over and over again? And I remember you in the seminars, and Dear Govinda would tell the same story again and again. And each time you would laugh and you would take such joy in it. And I thought, wow, she's really good at that. Like she makes it feel so fresh and new, even though I know I've heard it 3 or 4 times now. And that's helped me like see how it encourages and how it's like stays fresh. And I was thinking, how do I do that? And I remember it as a child, my mother would read books to us. And she'd record the book. When she read it, we would have a tape player, the cassette, and she would record the tape. And then I'd listen to that when she was gone out of town. I'd listen to her tell the story over and over again. And I knew the story, and I'd sometimes say it with the tape. And so I'm wondering if that feeling is like that, or that familiarity, if it is about familiarity, and if it's just nourishing. I guess it's nourishing to change. To come from that perspective of, I just want to hear that again, like there's something in that.
Thank you for sharing that. That's something that sticks with you, that sense of knowledge that there is no end to transcendental knowledge. Of course, 2 + 2 is 4. I don't know if I would like to hear that many times. But when it comes to eternal transcendental knowledge, to like rekindle that wonder and discovery and sense of familiarity, in a sense of closeness to your mom, reading that book again and again. And children do that so much. You know, with my daughter, I will read book and I was ready to go to another one because, okay, we have read this one already 10 times. I'm tired. Can we read something else? And she would ask again, can we read this book? And the emotion was the same. If there was a laughter, at the same page, the laughter will come. And if he was crying, at the same page, the crying will come. And the emotion were real. And that's it for us. It's like, I want to hear about Mother Yashoda. I want to hear about the pastime of Krishna. I want to hear about Srila Prabhupada's again and again. I read so many good books about Prabhupada's pastimes. Like, I don't know how many, from so many angles, you know, like different people speaking about those pastimes. And I'm still eager. When is the next one coming? Like to hear again and again. So you're looking at, okay, in some area of your life, like with your work, okay, you have knowledge, it's good knowledge about organization, you want to spread that knowledge, and you feel complete, you know, acquisition of that knowledge. It's like 2 + 2 is 4, a little bit like that, and you can teach someone 2 + 2 is 4. And then to also have that childlike wonder and discovery about, you know, knowledge of the self and knowledge of the soul. I can hear so many times, I'm not this body. You know, I can hear it so many times. And it seems that each time it goes in a different place within me. And each time it's so. But if I have I know that, then that's finished.
You miss it.
You miss it. You know, and that's why at the beginning of the seminar, I say, what are the three most dangerous words in the dictionary, like, or whatever, and say, I know that, because I'm done. If I think I know, first I don't know, because that's duality. I stay in that dual world. And I'm no longer in Atatavarmavikyasa of now is the time to inquire. And again, the Vedanta Sutra doesn't say now is the time to learn. It doesn't say now is the time to acquire knowledge. It says now is the time to inquire. And if we can stay with that inquiry, then constantly we are going to ask questions. I'm not this body, what does that mean? Yeah. And it's true, I laugh at Dear Govinda's joke in the seminar. And for me, each time I laugh, and it's true that I laugh, because each time I receive them as fresh, because maybe I see a different dimension or the situation or something, but I never tire. You know, I could almost, you know, and I could tire by, oh, he's going to make that joke in 2 minutes. Oh my God. Oh no, not that joke again.
I have one more question.
Yes.
It says here that Bhishma released his long cherished anger.
Yeah.
Will you talk about long cherished anger?
Of Bhima.
Yes.
It's
please.
not Bhishma, it's Bhima.
Bhima, sorry.
Bhishma is grandfather.
Okay.
And there are two personalities, and sometimes we can confuse their name. So Bhishma Dev is grandfather of the Pandava. No. I always look for Draupadi's picture, but you don't have Draupadi's picture.
Maybe I need to refer.
And so Bhishma Dev is the grandfather of the Pandava. And Bhima Sena is the brother of Arjuna. So the brother of Arjuna, so the Pandava, they were tortured and belittled and bullied by the Kurus from childhood, from the moment their father died. When they lost the protection of their father and were sent under the shelter of Dhritarashtra, the blind uncle that took the kingdom, then that started. And then Duryodhana, he had 100 brothers, and kind of because they were the son of the king or the active king, they had a superior position, even so the real heir to the kingdom were the Pandava, but because they were children, they couldn't take that position. So throughout those years, Bhimasena, he held up his anger because he could have killed them even in childhood, but he was told not to, and his brothers were holding him back. So he had that cherished anger inside him that he was cherishing against Duryodhana.
And when I think of cherish, I think of like a loving thing, like you cherish, like there are things I cherish that I love dearly and are really sweet to me. So when I think of cherished anger, they seem to
not come together.
Two different things.
Okay, so my take on that, although I don't know Vidura's psychology, and I don't want to pretend I do, but the way I receive it is that Vidura knows how Bhimasen was angry for such a long time, and even more so when Draupadi was disrobed. And he had that anger. So it's coming from Vidura saying, well, he had that cherished anger, finally he could release it. Like something that, yeah, he didn't want to let go because it was not right for Draupadi to be disrobed like that. So I'm thinking it's not like necessarily Bhima was cherishing his own anger, but like more Vidura looking at that anger and said cherished anger, like it's affectionate towards Bhimasen and affectionate towards the anger of Bhimasena against Duryodhana, that finally he could, vent on him or express on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So that's how I received it. Those two words sounds like very contradictory. However, I see a lot of affection in that coming from Vidura towards Bhimasen in using those words, cherished anger. That's
Yeah, and it sounds like especially for speaking about his mother,
Drupadi's wife
his wife. Okay.
that was disrobed. Yeah.
Okay. That by being cherished, it's like something that was just very important to him. That was wrong. And
Yeah.
so cherished in a way that he wanted to. I don't know if he wanted to rectify, but something like that was just really important. Maybe that's.
Yeah, it was very important and it was cherished. Like, yeah, it's something that was important that needed to be rectified. Yeah, and I think Figura expresses affection towards Bhima in those words. Yeah,
Thank you.
because he is the one speaking. That's the only. Thank you. Gajendra Prabhu, I see that you have your hands up.
Hare Krishna, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing, but I actually just appreciated what was just being said about the, cherish. It does kind of sound like an oxymoron to say cherish anger. But yeah, it just comes down, they're really good expressive words, that it was just something really important. That wasn't just, oh, well, whatever. It was just something that maintaining of great importance. What I wanted to comment on was the Vachya mantra, the verse, because in a similar way, I just wanted to look at this word tolerate. And actually I looked up the word tolerate in the dictionary and the word forbearance in the dictionary, because I realize that often my sense of the word tolerate misses an important component of the meaning, which is when I tolerate something, it's not genuine. It's definitely based on a lack of sort of self-honesty. Like true tolerance is about, actually peacefulness or acceptance of what's happening. And I realize that in my personal understanding of the word in unconscious ways, it's more clearly revealed to me now how it pretends to tolerate something, put on an act or act of toleration, not the real thing. And then I was also connecting that to, within that mantra, the idea of the action of anger. So it's like when one is falsely tolerating something, what's really happening inside them is they are producing anger, not necessarily an external action of anger like toward another person, but there's actually, in the deepest sense, there is an action of anger within them that will eventually rise until it becomes obvious to everyone that they're not really tolerating. Anyway, just appreciate my musings on it.
Thank you, Gajendra, with your musing aspiration. Muse. Yes. Thank you for sharing. And yes, it was an important, sometimes we have anger that kind of over trifles that are drama in our life. But kind of Vidura is pointing out here, like, it's cherished, it's important. It wasn't proper for Draupadi to be disrobed. It wasn't proper for the Pandava to not be given their right to the throne. It wasn't proper for them to be tortured and poisoned and burned and all those things. So yes, like finally, there was an opportunity for that anger that was cherished according to, even virtuous principle to be expressed. Yeah. And I appreciate the tolerance is often even more so, I think, in a spiritual environment, religious environment, definitely in Krishna consciousness, is very misunderstood as repression. And Krishna said, what repression can accomplish? Nothing. And then there is Matrasparsa, Sukonteya, Sukadukada, Agama, Payanitam, Tastitishtak, Parata. So there is like, okay, all those things, they come and go, like winter and summer season, and one needs to tolerate them without being disturbed. So in a sense, Krishna already like tell us what tolerate means. It's like, I'm not disturbed. So if I'm disturbed and I repress the disturbance in the name of tolerance, this is not tolerance. This is repression. And then, yeah, my understanding is yoga and the yoga system of like described in the Bhagavad Gita is to be able to be looking inward and then experiencing the anger, experiencing the action of anger, experiencing the urge of the genitals. I did some experience like after working through the guilt and shame with clients, let's say male or woman who have really a lot of problem with controlling their genital, controlling their self-urge and sex urge and feel guilty, feel unclean about it. And I had done the experience of asking a man or woman to like allow the urge to be there and experiencing their experience, which is not indulging in it, which is not acting upon it, just okay, I'm experiencing the urge of the genital and just allowing the same. And then just by that, they were able to completely free themselves from the slavery of that urge that before was really creating a deep sense of low self-worth, so a deep sense of not following the principle you want to follow. Yeah. So tolerating is often misunderstood, and like you said, is tolerating means like I experience my experience, and by experience my experience, I release it, and then I'm not disturbed. Thank you very much for your sharing, Gajendra Prabhu, and your musing. I love your musing.
I saw a really great comment. Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you very much. I saw a really great comment from Rukmini. I hope you'll notice it and read it.
Would you like to read it? Gajendra, would you like to read it? Your comment from
Rukmini, let's see, am I heard? Rukmini says, anger is intrinsic to Kshatriya Dharma, role of fighting. Arjuna lacked it initially when he was full of compassion, ready to avoid the fight. Krishna spoke the Gita to convince him otherwise.
No, it's very wise woman, Rukmini. Thank you. Like that may also explain the cherished of like, Bhima always wanted to act like a Kshatriya. He wanted to kill everybody and jump on everybody. He wanted to act like a Kshatriya. Yeah. So he was cherished because he was like delayed performance of his duty as a Kshatriya. And then Arjuna didn't connect with that energy. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Rukmini. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for being here. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande. Hare Krishna.